Welcome to the NWI.com Political Roundtable for Thursday, March the 1st. I'm Robert Blaszkiewicz, Assistant Managing Editor of The Times. Here with me today, Doug Ross, Editorial Page Editor of The Times, and Times columnist Mark Kiesling, bringing you the latest developments in the world of politics. And it's been quite a rip-roaring week in the State House. Let's start off with talking about the smoking ban, which I guess the Senate gave us the answer to the question of when is a smoke ban not a smoke ban.
Also, what were they smoking?
Yeah.
Well, a smoke ban is not a smoke ban when the Senate decides it's not a smoke ban.
Well, basically the Senate just gutted the bill, and tried to make it as awful as possible, I guess, to try to not pass it. But then yesterday finally did pass it. So now it goes to the conference committee, and one of two things can happen. Either they do get it patched up enough that they can take it and hopefully, well, I guess not just two, but many things can happen. But hopefully they'll get it patched up enough and that it will be acceptable in the Senate as well as in the House, filling in all the exemptions that the Senate added to it, so taking those exemptions away and making it more comprehensive. And then the other thing that could happen is that it becomes such an abomination that
everybody just throws up their hands and
say we give up.
Is it possible that you were talking about people throwing up their hands or just throwing up or whatever and saying this is an abomination? Are we just not ready to come into the 21st century yet, or what?
Well, or the late 20th.
The late 20th century.
The second half of the 20th century. I mean, what was it, 1964 when the Surgeon General report came out? So, here we are. We know the smoking is bad for you. We've known for decades that smoking is bad for the...
Bad.
Exactly.
Which puts employees at jeopardy.
But one thing I noticed was that how little health, the actual concept of the health of our state citizens was such a little part of the conversation about this bill.
Everything was more about economics.
Right.
It was more about, are we going to kill off the bar business? We're going to kill off the restaurant business.
Well,
we're going to kill off the casinos.
We even had one state senator making the argument that we need people buying cigarettes so that we can fund the Healthy Indiana program.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
that sounds like an argument you'd make in North Carolina.
Yeah.
So, and tobacco is grown in Indiana.
Oh,
not a substantial one.
It is, but it's not Indiana's number one crop. So.
Right. I mean, most people in Indiana grow something to smoke. Don't grow tobacco.
But I think
go to Newton County and pick it out of the ditch.
But bringing the issues together, I think you can make the argument that the health of the state citizens is an economic development issue, because if I'm a company, a multinational corporation that's maybe looking to locate in Indiana or locate in a number of different states,
do you want that burden on you?
I want a healthy workforce.
Exactly.
That's not going to be missing days. That's not going to kill my insurance costs.
Exactly.
And if Indiana,
kill my employees.
And kill my employees. So I think it is an economic development issue.
Oh, absolutely. And Indiana is one of the last tier of states to adopt a smoking ban. So, it doesn't speak well of a state that's trying to be, very business friendly, and yet it, won't go out and do this. To me, what it comes down to is, why don't municipalities, more of them, pass this? Why don't businesses just exempt themselves?
Well, yeah.
But their concern is we don't want to be the ones responsible, and so now you figure 23 or so % of Hoosiers smoke, and a large portion of those want to be able to smoke wherever they want.
Yeah.
So basically what it's coming down to is the state senators don't want to be the ones to be responsible for that.
Why are we so worried about offending what I think is roughly 22.5% of the population?
Because you have to figure this is a Republican Senate. It's a supermajority in the Senate. So what you have is on this issue at least, they want to be the party of having as little government as possible.
Well, and I understand that, and I understand the argument against government intrusion into people's
Right.
lives. But there's the old saying that your right to swing your fist ends where my nose begins.
Or, where your lungs begin in this
Yeah,
case.
and that's it. I mean, I don't care if people smoke. I mean, that's their prerogative. It's a
Roll up
legal
your window in your
substance.
car, I don't care.
Your house, your own home.
Right.
I don't want the police coming into your home and taking cigarettes. I don't want that. Or have smoking clubs. Or in Illinois, a lot of the restaurants and bars have gone to having segregated smoking rooms where it's truly
The air
smoke
doesn't
is
flow
truly
between.
unable to
Right.
penetrate through and get you. Because I remember going to a place one time that advertised it was non-smoking, and yet you could smoke at the bar. This is in Illinois before the smoking ban was passed there, and I mean, you might as well just have not done anything at all because all the smoke just wafted over into the restaurant area.
Well, and this speaks to this very well. My wife and I, when we're in Maryville, where we choose to eat, we make the choice. Oftentimes, we'll go back to Valpo, simply because we don't want to be in a smoky restaurant, even though it is, nominally a non-smoking section. We all know better. It's like,
And if 77% of your constituents do not smoke, what does this say about the concern of the supermajority to protect the health of its citizens?
Right, and also don't forget that what they were talking about to a great extent was about protecting children versus protecting adults. Ironic when you figure children don't vote, but
They do in Lake County, I think. It's a similar argument was made against seatbelt use or motorcycle helmet law use, and I can kind of see that in a way.
the helmet law we have is Darwin's law, you mean?
Well, you kind of thin out the gene pool, but anyhow, an adult, I think, should be allowed to decide whether or not they want to go to seatbelt. But for a child, they can't make that decision.
Right.
And so I have no problem with child safety seats and strapping them in and buckling them up and keeping them safe. But if you're an adult and you just don't care if you go through the windshield, it's really not my problem.
Yeah, I think in this case what it's coming down to is a worker protection issue.
Well,
This is the way it was cast in any case.
And there's going to be the argument that no one forces you to work there. Well, I mean, let's be real. In any economy, people take jobs that they can get.
Right.
Right. Switching gears to the Indiana Supreme Court, where there's an interesting, they're hearing arguments this week about Charlie White, the the ousted Secretary of State, who he was Secretary of State. He became the former Secretary of State when he was convicted of voter fraud. And now the case before the
Explain a
court.
little bit about that. I mean,
Right.
that was he lived outside.
He was basically accused of not voting where he lived.
Right.
And convicted, actually.
And convicted. So the argument from Democrats is that he was ineligible to run for Secretary of State, so the office should go to the runner-up in that race, who was Vapo Sealy, the Democrat.
And there's a judge's ruling to that effect as well.
Right. Republicans are arguing that it is that in the case of someone who's removed from office for a felony conviction, the governor gets to appoint the replacement, the governor being the Republican Mitch Daniels.
So, I mean, basically it's a battle between the two parties
Yeah.
Well,
for control of this.
and look at what happened. In Lake County, we'll just go to and look at some of the convictions that have happened here. Lake County, of course, has had most of the Democratic countywide office holders at least since the 50s, if not before.
Right.
Yeah, but if you remove one of them from office, the Democratic Party gets to appoint the new person.
But this is a little bit different because this is, something that he did that would have disqualified him from running, from being elected in the first place.
The crime was before he
Exactly.
was elected. It
So-
wasn't a crime that was committed while he was in office.
Right, and it was a crime that would preclude him from holding office, from being named to the winner.
But-
That's the nuance.
I mean, I guess the question is when was the challenge made? Was it made before he ran?
Yes.
So then, perhaps there's some merit to that argument.
Yeah, and it's going to be a really interesting one.
We'll see what the decision is.
Exactly.
I'm very
I mean,
interested.
we're
in seeing
really
that.
splitting hairs on this
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
It's not a clear-cut issue.
And some of us don't have as many to split anymore.
Yeah, getting back to the State House, another issue that passed with fairly little controversy was the Little Calumet levee maintenance fees.
Right.
Passed the Senate on Wednesday.
Yeah, absolutely, and passed it, 50-0. I mean,
Yes.
it just sailed through there. The interesting thing about this was, so what happens if the legislation fails? Well, Gary had already approved the Conservancy district, and so then, your other option would be a Conservancy district where the board of that district would be able to set whatever rates they wanted, rather than this is strictly controlled by the state legislature. So it's going to be harder to raise the rates.
Right.
So that'll be interesting. What this means is that A, they can finish the work. B, they can now address the tributaries that feed into the Little Calumet River, and figure out what to do with that.
Which were part of the problem
Exactly.
in the flood in the first place.
Right. I mean, and that's the why they're taxing
And this
the
will
people
basically
who live away.
this will assess a fee on property owners
Right.
within that watershed.
Exactly. So, I mean, if you have a large parcel, as I remember right, it's not the size of the parcel, but the fact that you own one. So,
But the fee, if I recall right, is rather minimal when you consider the amount
Right.
of damage done during the flood.
Right.
well, yes, and the other thing about this though is that you're also assessing a fee or a tax, whatever you want to call it, against the people who contribute to the problem, and not just the ones who benefit. And so it's the ones farther out who are contributing to the problem, but not they wouldn't be flooded.
Well, some people, yeah, and you're talking about areas like St. John.
Exactly.
Now, so some people out there don't understand that the rapid growth in that area has contributed to a lot of stormwater runoff into ditches that then feed into the Little Calumet.
Exactly.
And
When you
if-
develop, when you add
if you
road,
contribute
concrete,
to-
and things like
Right.
that.
Asphalt does not absorb water. It goes into.
Right.
There's been some research on, a porous surface for paving. So, maybe someday that will solve that problem.
Right, but that day is not
now.
here.
Exactly.
Right.
So this to me was a good call. There were some compromises made in the process of the sausage that came out of it, in the legislative sausage making process. Is more palatable than you might think.
Well, there's the old saying, half a loaf is better than none.
Right.
But in the case of like the smoking ban, I mean, you're not even basically getting a slice of bread. So.
Yeah, and it's good to see bipartisan cooperation for once. It's been such a partisan
It is
an
fairly
session.
acrimonious,
Absolutely.
So, that'll do it for this week. We thank you for watching, and we'll be back next week with another political roundtable.